When you spend almost a decade getting paid to let others use your body, it becomes very difficult to figure out what you yourself actually get off to. There was a short time when I was able to be a young, fun-loving slut, enjoying the exploration of my sexuality. But when I made the choice to begin sex work, I didn't know it would strip me of most of my sexual interests. I didn't know it would turn my fun exploration into a struggle for control of my own desires. While sex work was something I decided to do, it truthfully never felt like I had other options available to me. It was like a skill you have but don't want to rely on. But when the economy tanked and I couldn't find a job, I knew it would keep me sheltered, fed, and dressed. In the beginning, my clients were so respectful. I wondered why more people didn't get into this life. But as the years went on, the encounters grew more dangerous. And they began to strip me of my libido. I won't go into details here. I did that in a previous essay, but in those times when a, quote, client left me with no ounce of control over my own body, I couldn't stop my skin from feeling like it was constantly crawling away. I felt undesirable by any standards and hated everything about my body and appearance. Not feeling like I had an outlet to express my own needs, I turned to the shady art of catfishing. The idea that I could control other people's desires just to leave them disappointed appealed to me. I knew I wasn't the only person feeling used. I had some power, and that power was addicting. For years, these alternative profiles I created became a drug for me. I was sly, slick, and quick. I knew all the tricks, and 95% of the time, I got my way. It wasn't until I began waking from my sexual psychosis years later that I'd realized how many lives I had hurt and impacted. The fantasy worlds I had created leaked into my real life and wreaked havoc. Once my abysmal behaviors began to bleed that far over, I knew I needed to stop. And the only way I could was to just be honest with everyone about my trauma like I am now. I had to find a way to keep myself accountable. Once I was able to leave the sex world behind, it felt like my sexual prowess was on empty. Even after finding, quote, normalcy in a monogamous relationship, we only had sex maybe 2 times a month. I didn't like being touched anymore, even by someone I was in love with. My brain yearned for that intimacy, but my body squarely rejected it. I couldn't find a groove that made both of us happy. My ex and I were dating for 3 years and had lived in 3 states together before he admitted he just couldn't take it anymore. Something needed to change. He had used the sexual violence of my past as a weapon against me, and he was afraid the resentment would continue to rise if we didn't find a compromise. I was tired of feeling like a victim. Ironic, since this time was also the beginning of the end of me being a douchey catfishing perpetrator in the shadows. He was tired of feeling aggressive. I had always enjoyed menage a trois in my early sex life, but I kept it to myself all these years. My ex was very traditional, but I finally manned up and opened up to him about my kink. He was hesitant at first, but soon we had a different guy every week to get tag teamed by us. Didn't bother our roommates either. They would much rather hear an hour of sex noises over a whole evening of fighting. K8e even made a joke that we should make our safe word her name and make the boys scream it. I felt like I was living the dream for a while. On a tangent quickly, one time we really did get a guy to jokingly scream K8e's name. We could hear her cracking up in the other room immediately after. I think it made her night. However, the more we engaged in threesomes, the less he and I enjoyed our own alone time. It became another weapon for him to use against me, and a band-aid for my mental health. It was a replacement for the truth that our sexual energies just weren't compatible. I felt like a failure for not being more physical. So when he left me for a younger guy we played with before, one who was tiny and petite, I allowed myself to sink right back into that hole of undesirability I had already lived comfortably in for so long. When the dust cleared and I had gotten over the feeling that my lack of desires led my ex to his new lover, I began to heal. A dial in my brain began to turn from shameful to confident. I had let my past define my present for so long. Needed to figure out a way to make it more compact for my future. It began with admitting that I'm privileged in the looks department by conventional standards, and I needed to embrace my beautiful face. Being a victim when I looked this good was pathetic. Step 1, getting over myself. I then needed to accept that I would never find the love and comfort I desire in a completely monogamous relationship, ever. I am coming out now as someone who is 100% non-monogamous. I don't really know if there's a definition to what I desire, but it all comes down to compatibility. Really, I'm not aiming to find someone. I hope my life can be filled with many wonderful people I can build trust and love with. Those threesomes were just the beginning of my own awakening. While I used them to get out of sexual responsibilities in my relationship, they were actually a sign of not wanting to be committed to one person to even begin with. Trying to fit my sexuality into a definitive box was impossible, and allowing others to abuse my psyche for their own gain only contributed to the confusion I already had before being in that relationship. Needed some time to just be with myself for a while, to figure out my life. The guilt I had for not being able to adequately conform myself into this picture-perfect monogamous pairing has now been completely removed. It didn't even leave a stain. I'm comfortable in my questioning. It's my life, my body, and my time to figure it all out. For the first time since leaving the sex industry, I don't need to avoid or control sex. I can just breathe and be, and let whatever happens to happen naturally. I look back to all that anxiety that sex caused me. From my first time getting paid for sex when I was 18 to the last time I had sex with my ex. Anxiety was the primary feeling I related to touch. I will never allow myself to feel that way again. My sexuality, once again, belongs to me, honestly. And it all started with just being honest and not letting my experiences control me any longer. Lastly, to all those twins out there calling me Zaddy, you can totally get it!